It's been 75 years since the National Wildlife Federation began its mission to conserve our country's natural heritage. And in many ways, NWF's history has mirrored America's life and times. By the 1980s, the National Wildlife Federation had become the largest citizen conservation group in the United States. And to get all Americans involved in preserving our planet, the Federation turned to some popular TV stars to get their message out.
Well, don't they understand how important clean water is to fish in and to swim in and to make a decent glass of lemonade with?
Yeah, we all forget sometimes. Water is something we have to conserve and keep clean.
Conserving the delicate ecosystems of barrier islands was a priority, so NWF worked with Congress to pass protective laws. When some of these islands were threatened in 2010 by the Gulf oil spill, NWF was on the scene to minimize the damage.
Back in the 80s, we did a lot of work with Congress to protect barrier islands in the Gulf Coast and Atlantic coasts. And having just been down there to do some work to protect sea turtles from the Gulf oil spill disaster, I really saw firsthand how important those environments are, not only for the animals, but also for the people that live there.
Our national radio, Nature News Breaks, with well-known wildlife advocate Jim Fowler, kept Americans informed about the world around them.
This is Nature News Break. Here's Jim.
There's a good reason why cliff swallows nest in large colonies.
When the man-made disaster of the Exxon Valdez spill threatened the Alaska coast in 1989, NWF lent its support to the cleanup effort.
When the Exxon Valdez oil spill occurred decades ago, and more recently when the Gulf oil spill disaster occurred, that's when the National Wildlife Federation is at its best. I was so proud to see this organization leap into action in both of those situations, and I've never seen the staff work harder and be more dedicated.
Global warming was the hot topic of the 90s, and NWF took some of its first efforts to reverse that trend.
The notion was that we would attach a small tax to energy production, which would then be used to fund new technologies, solar, wind, putting in new technologies.
In '91, Wildlife Week focused on warming threats to the planet's polar regions.
The most important issue that man and wildlife have ever faced is global warming. That's why it's so important that the National Wildlife Federation is leading the way on addressing this issue.
Investments made 2 decades earlier in species preservation began to pay off as the bald eagle began a comeback.
Imagine a world without polar bears or bald eagles or bison. That's why National Wildlife Federation fights so hard and is going to continue to fight for strong endangered species laws, because without those laws, those species will go extinct.
Teaming up with 40 Native American tribes, NWF introduced a landmark program to restore the once mighty wild bison to the American West. During this decade, NWF produced several blockbusters, starring iconic species like dolphins, bear, and wolves. Its IMAX production, Whales, remains one of the 25 largest grossing movies of all time. The plight of oceans was a cause near and dear to another distinguished ally of NWF.
We all share the gifts of a living sea. Help protect this priceless resource.
As the decade closed, NWF certified the first community habitat in Alpine, California. Community habitats encouraged cleanups and wildlife gardens. Later, schoolyards joined the cause. Some 35 years since its start, this ongoing campaign counts nearly 150,000 members. A new century brought new ideas and reinforced old ones for the Federation. Global warming continued to be a concern. Victories for the NWF came with the delisting of 2 formerly endangered species, the mighty grizzly bear and the emblematic bald eagle. Meanwhile, other species and ecosystems, like the disappearing Florida panther and the fragile Everglades, called for extraordinary measures to be preserved.
Today's indoor kids spend more than 7 hours in front of electronic media. That's why
New NWF campaigns like Be Out There encouraged Americans to enjoy the natural wonders of their country.
There's a reason they call it the great outdoors. Learn more at beoutthere.org.
Recently, the NWF began a new initiative to restore the great waters of America. Its mission, already underway, looks to restore, sustain, and maintain the waterways we all enjoy for many years to come.
They've always had a commitment to science-based approach, and they've always been effective communicators, and that's brought them credibility with the public and with their partners, and I think that's been the key, the thing that's made NWF what it is.
National Wildlife Federation has always acted on good science. That has been our foundational value system. So we're aiming at the head with the science, but we're also aiming at the heart. And for me, it's a very easy step to get from my head to my heart because, you know, I think about my children and what they're going to inherit. I think about nature and the places that I love and what's happening to them. And to me, that is the critical dimension because it's from our heart that we actually take steps to do something about climate change.